places that you know seem like fantasy. There's a light inside your soul that's still shining in the cold, with the truth, the promise in our hearts. Don't forget, I'm with you in the dark.
James is a mixed traffic engine. He's the same size as Edward. When he first came to the railway, he had wooden brakes that had not done a very good job. Since then, not only had the fat director sent him away to be fixed, but the railway has now become nationalized, meaning the fat director is now referred to as the fat controller. You're a mixed traffic engine, James. You can pull coaches and freight cars like Henry and Gordon and Edward. Speaking of which, Edward will show you around the yard to help you get used to your new location, said the fat controller. Edward soon showed James around the yard. Now remember, James, said Edward, you can bump coaches and trucks, but be careful with the coaches. They don't like being bumped a lot, and you'll cause a ruckus. One day, James and Edward were tasked to pull a special train. I'm a really useful engine, said James, and he let off steam. Unfortunately, it got all over the fat controller's brand new black top hat. It was now time to leave, and James was worried. He just wanted to get out of the station as quickly as possible. He didn't even want to stop at the first station. They soon met up with Thomas at Mayfway Station. Oh, hello, James, he said. See, you're in a better mood now. I'm just relaxing and... Oh, that's my guard's whistle. I better go. See you both. James and Edward soon headed home, but James was still worried about what the fat controller would say. The next morning, the fat controller spoke to James about his previous behavior. If you can't behave, he said, I shall take away your red paint and repaint you blue. James didn't like that at all. That afternoon, he was extra rude to the coaches. Come on, you, he said. To make matters worse, all the passengers stood far away from him as to not get covered in soot. Gordon never has to fetch his own coaches, James said angrily, and he's already painted blue. Soon it was time for James to leave. Come on, he said. But James was still rude to the coaches. Oh, he said, don't bump us so hard, or we're going to stop. But James took no notice. After a mile or two down the line, the coaches finally had enough. We're going to stop! What happened? Said James. There's a pipe loose between the coaches, said his crew. We'll need a bootlace just to fix it. The crew asked the passengers if any of them had a bootlace. At last, one man named Jeremiah Jobling had one. Hey you, said James' driver. You have a leather bootlace. Please give it to me. I won't. So there. Then I'm afraid the train's gonna have to just stay here. The passengers all complained what a bad railway this was. Then they told Jeremiah how bad a person he was too. Everyone was very, very cross. At last, Jeremiah finally gave his bootlace to James' crew. They went between the coaches and tied a knot around the pipe to fix it. Soon James was finally able to leave. But I don't think he'll be so rude to the coaches ever again. James was feeling miserable in the sheds after his incident with the bootlace. "Oh dear," he said. "Why did I make a fool of myself by using that, of all things, a bootlace to fix the coaches? The Fat Controller will never forgive me now." The Fat Controller soon came later that day. "Now, James," he said, "I know you want to be really useful, and I know too you're very sorry for what happened, so I'm giving you another chance. I'd like you to carry some foolish freight cars for me to the next station. Can you do that for me?" "Okay, sir," said James, and he puffed away. James took no nonsense from the trucks. "Listen here, you lot. I don't want any troublesomeness." And James meant it. The trucks were annoyed by this. No, we want a proper engine, not a red monster." "Be quiet," James said. As they puffed on, the trucks caused more and more trouble, putting their brakes on, bumping James, but he didn't care. Soon, James and the trucks reached Gordon's Hill, but with a sudden jerk, some of James' cargo fell back down the hill. It's become easier, said James. "Not quite," said his driver. "We've left some of the trucks behind." "Oh, bother," said James. Luckily, Edward was at the bottom of the hill when James arrived. "You okay, James?" he said. "Yeah, I'm fine. Do you need any help?" "No, I can manage," said James, and he puffed away. Soon, when James was finished with his train, he went to the siding for a rest. Soon, Edward came along with a very important passenger. "Oh no," said James. It was the Fat Controller. "What will the Fat Controller say?" But the Fat Controller wasn't cross with James. Not even a little. In fact, he was very happy with him. "I'm very proud of you, James. You handled the most nastiest trucks in the yard with dignity, and for that I forgive your actions for the bootlace." "Oh, thank you, sir," said James happily. Some nights, Gordon and Henry slept with James at the sheds. The two bigger engines liked making fun of James about the time he had to use a bootlace. James, on the other hand, likes making fun of them about getting stuck in tunnels and bursting safety valves. "You talk too much, little James," said Gordon. "I'm the only engine who can pull the express. If I'm not there, they need two engines. I've pulled the express for many years, and have never once lost my way." Of course, every wise engine knows that the signalmen are the ones that guide the engines. The next morning, Gordon woke James up early. "Wake up, little James," he'd say. "Go and fetch my coaches. Be quick now." James soon shunted Gordon's coaches in. He would sometimes wish he could pull the express like Gordon. When it was time for Gordon to leave, James watched from the station to see Gordon leave with the express. As soon as Gordon was out of sight, James would go back to work. Later that day, James was just working at the station when Gordon tried to sneak up quietly. "Hello, Gordon," said James. "Is it tomorrow already?" "No, of course not, James. The stupid signalman got me on the wrong line, and I had to go in a circle just to get back." Perhaps it was instinct. The passengers were furious by this. "We want our money back," they yelled at the Fat Controller. "James," he'd say, "Gordon is in disgrace. Will you please pull the express?" "I'll try," said James. Not long after, James was coupled to the front of the express train, and once the guard blew his whistle, he was ready to leave. Come along, come along. James pulled the express very nicely that day. The passengers were very glad he pulled it. Soon James and his train reached the terminus, where the Fat Controller had something to say to him. "James," said the Fat Controller, "would you like to pull the express now and then?" "Of course, sir," said James happily. From that day forward, James and Gordon became best friends. James sometimes pulled the express to give Gordon a rest, and Gordon stopped talking about bootlaces. And James stopped talking about engines who got stuck on hills. But they both liked talking about bumping trucks. Thomas likes working on his new branch line. He has 2 new coaches named Annie and Clarabelle. Annie can only take passengers, but Clarabelle can take passengers, luggage, and the guard. One day, Henry was late with his train, and this made Thomas cross. "How can I run my line properly if Henry's always late?" Soon, Henry slowly came to the station. "Where have you been, lazy bones?" "Oh dear, you don't know what I suffer." "Pah," said Thomas. "You're too fat, you need exercise." Once Henry had left, Thomas was ready to leave. But as the guard was getting into Clarabelle, he accidentally tripped over an old lady's umbrella. By the time he got on his feet, Thomas had already completely left the station, not knowing he had left the guard behind. Annie and Clarabelle tried to warn Thomas that the guard had been left behind. "We've left the guard behind! We've left the guard behind!" But Thomas paid no attention, thinking that they were just complaining about something. Sooner or later, Thomas arrived at a signal. "Bother that signal," said Thomas. "I'll wait for the guard to tell me when it's time to go." But the guard was nowhere to be seen. "Where is the guard?" The passengers started getting annoyed. And Clarabelle finally said, "We've left him behind." Soon the guard managed to catch up to Thomas and Clarabelle. The poor man was so exhausted he had to sit down and have a drink. "I'm very sorry, Mr. Guard," said Thomas. "It wasn't your fault," said the guard. "It was a lady's old umbrella that caught me off guard. Look, the signal's up. We can go now." And Thomas, with his guard, managed to go. As they left, Annie and Clarabelle just said, "As fast as you like, as fast as you like." When Thomas likes puffing down his branch line, he always looks forward to an interesting part: the sight of the river. Thomas always wanted to go fishing, but his driver said no. Whenever he asked in an engine, he would go, "I want to fish." But they all had the same answer: "Engines don't go fishing." Silly stick in the muds, Thomas would think. Then one day, the water tower was out of water. "Bother," said Thomas. "Never mind," said his crew. "We'll get some from the river." And so Thomas headed for the river. Once they got there, they got a bucket and some rope and lowered it down to the river. The bucket was old and had 5 holes in it, so they had to do it quickly, for the water leaked out. As they did this, the driver started a song. There's a hole in my bucket, dear Liza, dear Liza. Never mind about Liza. You get that water in Thomas's tank, or else you'll be dripping all over us. After a good long minute, Thomas was finally full. That's good, said Thomas. As Thomas left one of the tunnels, he felt a sharp pain in his boiler. I'm going to burst, said Thomas in shock and scared. Thomas was forced onto another line, and his crew wrote, Danger, keep away, so nobody would come near. They telephoned the Fat Controller to get him involved, and he brought an inspector. I'll just look in the tank, said the inspector. But once he did, he nearly fell off in surprise. Topham, said the inspector, you might want to take a look at this. And the Fat Controller did. Inspector, can you see fish? So that's what was causing the blockage, said Thomas' driver. It was the fish. Thomas's crew got fishing rods, and the Fat Controller told them how to fish properly to get the fish out of Thomas's tank. For some chips, he got some potatoes from the station master's office, and the four men had a nice picnic supper of fish and chips. That was good, said the Fat Controller. But Thomas, he said, you mustn't do it again, do you understand? Yes, sir, said Thomas. Engines don't go fishing. It's too uncomfortable. Autumn had come to the island of Sodor. The leaves were falling, the trees were shedding, and a small little orange tractor plowed through the field. One day, Thomas and his coaches saw this tractor while pulling on his line. Hello, said the tractor. I'm Terence. Hello, said Thomas. I'm Thomas. What ugly wheels you've got. They're not ugly, said Terence. They're my caterpillars. I'm able to make tracks among the ground, so I can go anywhere I'd like. I don't need rails to move around. Well, I like my rails, said Thomas, and he rudely puffed away. From time to time, Thomas would see Terence once in a while, and while he would whistle to Terence, Terence would never respond back. Winter soon came, and Thomas's driver was not happy. I don't like this, he'd say. Snow will get worse. But Thomas just thought, snow is silly soft stuff. It can't hurt me. When they arrived at the next station, Thomas saw a snowplow. Don't tell me, said Thomas. I'm afraid so, said his driver. You'll have to wear your snowplow for the next journey. Thomas hated his snowplow. He shook it and banged it, and by the end of the afternoon, it was so banged up, Thomas couldn't fit it on. You're a very naughty engine, said his driver. Soon, Thomas had to leave without his snowplow. Be careful, Thomas, said his driver. It will get deep in the valley. As Thomas puffed down his line, he just thought, snow is silly soft stuff. It can't hurt me. He rounded the bend and entered the tunnel. But there was trouble ahead. Cinders and ashes, thought Thomas. I'm stuck. And he was. Pull out, said his driver. Thomas tried to move, but the snow refused to let him go. His crew tried digging away the snow, but there was too much. A bus had to take his passengers away. and poor Thomas was left cold in the snow. But who to come and save him but Terence? "I'm very sorry I was rude to you," said Thomas. "That's all right," said Terence. "Let's be friends." "All right," said Thomas, and Thomas, with his 2 coaches, puffed away with a brand new friend.
One day, Thomas was waiting at the junction when a bus came into the yard.
"Hello,"
said Thomas.
"who are you?"
I'm Bertie. Who are you?
"I'm Thomas. I run this line."
Oh, so you're Thomas, are you? Oh, yes. I remember now. You stuck in the snow, didn't you? I took your passengers and Terence pulled you out, didn't he? Well, I've come to help you with your passengers today.
"Help me?"
said Thomas crossly, going bluer than ever and letting off steam.
"I could go faster than you."
You can't?
"I can."
All right. I'll race you.
said Bertie. The drivers agreed. The station master said, "Are you ready? Go!" And they were off. Thomas never could go fast at first, and Bertie drew in front. Thomas was running well, but he did not hurry. "Why don't you go fast? Why don't you go fast?" called Daniel and Clarabel anxiously.
"Wait and see. Wait and see."
hissed Thomas. "He's a long way ahead, a long way ahead," they wailed. But Thomas didn't mind. He remembered the level crossing. There was Bertie fuming at the gates while they sailed gaily through.
"Goodbye, Bertie."
called Thomas. The road left the railway and went through a village, so they couldn't see Bertie. They stopped at a station.
"Quickly, please."
called Thomas. Everybody got out quickly, the guard whistled, and off they went.
Come along,"
sang Thomas. Then he whistled shrilly in horror, for Bertie was crossing the bridge over the railway, tooting triumphantly on his horn.
"Oh, dearie me. Oh, dearie me."
groaned Thomas. "He's a long way in front, a long way in front," wailed Danny and Clarabel. "Steady, Thomas," said his driver. "We'll beat Bertie yet. We'll beat Bertie yet," echoed Danny and Clarabel.
We'll do it,
panted Thomas bravely.
"Oh, bother. There's a station."
As he stopped, he heard a toot.
Goodbye, Thomas. You must be tired. Sorry I can't stop. We bosses have to work, you know.
The next station was by the river. They got there quickly, but the signal was up.
"Oh, dear,"
thought Thomas.
"we've lost."
But he felt better after a drink. Then James rattled through with a goods train, and the signal dropped, showing the line was clear.
"Hurrah, we're off! Hurrah, we're off!"
puffed Thomas gaily. As they rumbled over the bridge, they heard an impatient and there was Bertie waiting at the red light, while cars and lorries crossed the narrow bridge in the opposite direction. Excited passengers in train and bus cheered and shouted across the valley. Now Thomas reached his full speed, and foot by foot, yard by yard, he gained, till they were running level. Bertie tried hard, but Thomas was too fast. Slowly but surely he drew ahead, till whistling triumphantly, he plunged into the tunnel, leaving Bertie toiling far behind.
"I've done it! I've done it!"
panted Thomas in the tunnel. "We've done it, hooray! We've done it, hooray!" chanted Annie and Clarabel, and whistling proudly, they whooshed out of the tunnel into the last station. The passengers gave Thomas 3 cheers and told the station master and the porters all about the race. When Bertie came in, they gave him 3 cheers too.
Well done, Thomas. That was fun. But to beat you over that hill, I should have to grow wings and be an aeroplane.
Thomas and Bertie now keep each other very busy. Bertie finds people in the villages who want to go by train and takes them to Thomas, while Thomas brings people to the station for Bertie to take home. They often talk about their race, but Bertie's passengers don't like being bounced like peas in a frying pan, And the Fat Controller has warned Thomas about what happens to engines who race at dangerous speeds. So although, between you and me, they would like to have another race, I don't think they'll ever will.